all know you
We all
shouldn't
know you
trust
shouldn't
everything you
trust
see on the
everything you
internet,
see
but
on
as
the
it turns
internet.
out, we shouldn't
But as
believe
it turns
everything that
out,
we're
we
taught in
shouldn't
school
believe everything that we taught in school.
either. Our
Either
textbooks are
our
overflowing with
textbooks are overflowing with
exaggeration,
exaggeration,
misinformation, and sometimes downright
misinformation, and sometimes downright lies.
lies. Can the Great Wall of China really be seen from space?
Can the Great Wall of China really be seen from space?
Is it true that genius Albert Einstein
Is it true that Albert Einstein
actually failed math class in high school? What other
actually failed math class in high school?
nonsense have we been spoon-fed?
What other nonsense have we been spoon-fed?
Let's dive in and find
Let's
out.
dive in and find out.
All right, ladies and gents, let's kick off this countdown of
Let's kick off this countdown of lights.
lies. When you think of
When you
world
think
wonders,
of
what
world
comes to mind
wonders,
first?
what
Machu
comes to mind first?
Picchu, the pyramids, or the Great Wall
Machu Picchu, the pyramids,
of China? For us,
or the Great Wall of China?
it's the latter, and for good reason.
For us, it's the latter, and for good reason.
Because what other world wonder is
Because what
visible
other
from
world
space?
wonder is visible from space?
Exactly. But here's the thing.
But
The
here's the
so-called
thing.
Great Wall isn't
The so-called Great Wall
even that great. The
isn't even that great.
truth is that it simply cannot be
The truth is that it simply cannot
seen from outside of our atmosphere.
be seen from outside of our atmosphere.
Even from the moon, which in the grand scheme of
Even from the moon, which in the grand scheme
the universe is relatively close, it's
of the universe that is relatively close,
still invisible. According to NASA,
is still invisible. According to NASA,
the unaided eye cannot see the wall
the unaided eye cannot see the world
from a low Earth orbit, despite
from a low Earth orbit,
it being 13,170
despite it being 13,170
miles long. While
miles long.
it is a masterpiece of
While it is a masterpiece of
ancient engineering, it is not as
ancient
big as you
engineering,
think. In terms
it is not as big as you think.
of width, it's only 20
In terms of width, it's only 20
feet at the bottom
feet
and
at the
16
bottom
feet at the top.
and 16 feet at the top.
This myth first started circulating in the
This myth first started circulating
mid 1700s.
in the mid 1700s.
However, that's way before we made it up onto the
However, that's way before we made it up
moon or started putting satellites
onto the moon or started putting satellites
into space.
Into
While
space.
over 10 million people visit the
while over 10 million people visit
winding Great Wall of China every year.
the winding Great Wall of China every year.
Unfortunately, it's not thick enough to be seen
Unfortunately, it's not thick enough to be seen from
from the stars.
the stars.
Myth busted.
Myth busted.
Now, if you ever took a history
Now, if you ever took a history class
class at school in the
at
USA,
school
we're
in
pretty
the
sure
USA,
that you've heard of a certain
we are pretty sure that you've heard of a certain
George Washington? No, not George
George Washington. No,
Washington Carver, the
no, not George Washington Carver,
man who invented peanut butter, but
the man who invented peanut butter, but
George Washington, the founding
George Washington, the
father who served as first
father
president of
who
the United
served
States
as
from
first president of the United States from
1789 to 1797.
from 1789 to
As first president of the United States from 1789 to 1797.
1797.
We've always been told of this famous
We've always been told of this
tale about him and his dad in a cherry
famous tale about him and his dad in a cherry tree,
tree, and we've come to accept it wrongly
and we've come to accept it wrongly
as fact.
as
If you need a
fact.
quick refresher,
If you
here's
need
the
a
story
quick
in rapid
refresher,
time.
here's
Little
the story
6-year-old
in
George
rapid
Washington
time.
was given a hat
Little 6-year-old George Washington
hatchet from Dad for his birthday. George
was given a hatchet from Dad for his birthday.
used it to cut down his dad's favorite
George used it to cut down his dad's favorite
cherry tree. Dad was mad
cherry
and confronted
tree. Dad was mad
George, who instead of denying it said the
and confronted George, who instead of denying it,
famous words, quote,
said the famous words, quote,
I cannot tell a lie.
I cannot tell a lie.
Here's the thing, though. I
Here's the thing, though.
cannot tell a lie was
I cannot tell the lie, a lie,
a lie. Even
was a lie.
though Washington was already a great
Even though Washington was already
dude, a biographer
Dude.
named Mason Locke
a biographer named Mason
Weems exaggerated
Weeds exaggerated
his notable characteristics even
his notable characteristics.
further. Weems
Even
simply
further.
made up the tale to
Wynne simply made up the tale to
highlight Washington's honesty
highlight Washington's honesty and
and his good nature.
his good nature.
If we hadn't quite quenched your thirst for
If we hadn't quite quenched your thirst for
mind-blowing revelations about world
mind-blowing revelations about
wonders, then fret
world
not, because
wonders,
we've got
then
an
fret
absolute
not, because
doozy about the
we've got an absolute doozy
pyramids coming right up here. If we
about the pyramids coming right up here.
asked you to tell us who built the
If you asked to tell us who built the
pyramids, what would your response be?
what would your response be?
The ancient Egyptians, right?
The ancient Egyptians, right?
The wealthy put slaves to work, dragging
The wealthy put slaves to work,
incredibly heavy stones up slopes
dragging incredibly heavy stones up slopes,
until finally they created an
until finally they created
unforgettable landmark. Well,
an unforgettable landmark. Well,
that's not quite true either.
that's not quite true either.
Sorry to burst your bubble, pharaohs, but
Sorry to burst your bubble, pharaohs, but
the majority of the manpower wasn't,
the majority of the manpower was,
in fact, not the slaves.
in fact, not the slaves.